the end goal is obviously not just the end of the war. Obviously, that's essential and fundamental. We want to see the end of the killing and the death and the suffering, and I'm sure the Ukrainian side, I know they do as well. They want peace, but it's also about securing an end to the war that leaves Ukraine sovereign and independent and with an opportunity at real prosperity. So this is not just about ending a war. This is about ending a war in a way that creates a mechanism and a way forward that will allow them to be independent and sovereign, never have another war again, and create tremendous prosperity for its people. Not just rebuild the country, but to enter an era of extraordinary economic progress. It's a country with, Ukraine has tremendous economic potential. Ukraine has tremendous opportunity for true prosperity. Obviously, you can't do that in the middle of a war like this, but ending the war alone won't achieve that. So this is not just about peace deals. It's about creating a pathway forward that leaves Ukraine sovereign, independent, and prosperous.
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is December 1st, 2025. It is Monday. Yeah, it's a difficult day today. And what you see in the beginning is essentially same old, same old. We have people like Marco Rubio and other people, including Steve Witkoff. I'm really sorry for him. He's one of those with the more or less common sense who try to endure this garbage from the Ukrainian delegation. And then, of course, what happens next, as you see yourself, all kinds of things begin to fly in, and they continue to fly in. And this is what I'm going to talk about today a little bit more, because many people may complain, and some do complain, however, few of them are. And it's the fact that I have to constantly be into the political commentary instead of the purely military affairs. Well, I mean, military defines, always did actually, the political issues on the international arena, geopolitics, if you wish. And here, what we have to keep in mind. So, Europe, as I discussed it with on a number of occasions, including yesterday with George Galloway, about the fact that Europe is not a subject; it's an object of the international relations. It is, it's civilization which is in the in death throes now. It's dying. It's pretty much it's gonna die. It's very near it. And after that, what can they do? Well, I have to immediately state that practically everything what is known today about, for example, Cold War 1.0 and World War II in Europe and in United States too is primarily confabulated fairy tales. That this is not to say that NATO is not was not actually initially the defensive alliance. It was created as the defensive alliance against this hypothetical invasion of the Soviet army for some reason. I don't know why. But the truth is, obviously, we know what it turned into after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And so, what can I say? Things started to go downhill really fast in historical terms, because obviously 35 years in historical terms, it's really, it's instant. It's minute, if you wish, So, along against the background of the basically ongoing or progressing history. So, what can I say? Let's start with the fact that obviously Europe is in a complete panic. and they should be, but nothing is gonna change there. And so, as you can see yourself, if you go to Douglas McGregor and Daniel Davis discussion yesterday, you will see yourself that essentially Douglas McGregor is absolutely correct, stating that Russia is marching west. Talks have changed nothing, and this is what I repeat non-stop, because all of this is a brown noise for the consumption of the brainwashed Western public, and this is the only thing they can do. From the generals to admirals to politicians, to they can do PR only. They cannot fight a real war. They cannot basically control or manage a real economy. They can do nothing. And so, as the result, we have now this, oh my God, the panic. Well, the panic is actually, how to put it? Oh, good Lord, it's unbelievable. Bloomberg reports yesterday. So that NATO is preparing to confront Russia with limited US support. The worst case scenario is now a possible one. European troops fighting off an invasion largely alone. So people who wrote this, and there are a number of the politicians in the Western Europe, especially and in Poland. Obviously, it's never forget Poland. There who exercise this delirium actually as the real viable some kind of the geopolitical scenario, but you cannot teach them. They are incompetent and actually highly ignorant people. And obviously, why Russians would go to Europe, as I stated many times, remains a complete mystery. Why would Russia need to get a bunch of the freeloaders who will be becoming poorer and more poorer and with every day to put them on their neck? I mean, it's difficult to explain, but this is the sort of thinking which they have there. And of course, part of it thinking is to, basically turn the European, especially hoi polloi, into the complete panic mode. And they actually are succeeding, because most of the Europeans are, well, they are predispositioned to hate Russia and believe all kind of garbage about Russia and Russians and, intentions of Russia. So it works to a degree, So, and as I stated many times, the fact that, for example, Macron has their like 11% support in France nowadays, well, it means nothing. There is no change. Even if they elect somebody else, it will have very little to do with Russia or their international relations. It will have everything to do with their stomachs, which is fine. Economic factor in our political choices always is very important, but the truth is they will continue to hate Russians as they did before. So it doesn't change anything. No matter who comes to power in Europe, they will be like people who have no clue about anything, and they will continue to exercise, some knowingly, others because they are genuine articles and morons. They will continue to exercise this delirium that Russians somehow want to invade Europe. Why? Of course, nobody can answer this. I mean, Russians are not going to clean the garbage from the streets of Paris, and it will continue to smell with urine no matter what. The same goes to most of the European cities, and it's the European business to deal with this. I mean, let them. So, what do we have in this case? Well, we have here the situation that oh, good Lord. We have this article. So this article is, of course, ex-Ukrainian army chief Zaluzhny. Zaluzhny is the typical Ukrainian military guy. He never served in the Soviet military. That means he never have been subjected to the cultural educational level of that. He graduated some kind of the vocational school under the auspices of the Odessa Combined Arms Academy. So the guy is downright moron and is a butcher. So he perfectly fits with the psychology and educational and cultural level of the people from the Imperial General Staff from London, MI6 and all that. He is their creature. He is controlled. He is blackmailed by them, and he is a butcher. He is not a great military leader. He is a demagogue who has no basic understanding of the modern warfare, and that, as I already stated, he is in many respects manifestation of how, for example, a British military views war due to their utter incompetence, professional inadequacy, and low cultural and educational levels. Be them obviously from this vocational school they called for some reason military academy in the Sandhurst, and ending up with all those operational and strategy departments and the King's College and whatever the hell they have the short course on the strategic studies in the some whatever they call general staff courses. So, and as you can see yourself, he wants nukes. So as you can see yourself, it's all repetition of the same garbage, all repetition of the same things about, for example, like there is a some peace plan. There are no peace plan. There are only 28, 29, 35, whatever points which Russians are ready to discuss with the United States only. But what he says that the general who has reportedly been quietly building a campaign team from London to be able to run for president shared his musings about how Russia could be defeated and how to build what he called a better Ukraine and what security guarantees Kiev would have to secure in order to prevent the conflict with Moscow from the reigning in the future. Reigniting in the future. Well, he says that such security guarantees could include Ukraine's accession to NATO, the deployment of nuclear weapons on Ukrainian territory, or the deployment of a large allied military contingent capable of confronting Russia. So the 5-year-old kindergarten child can come up with this so-called plan, but it has to be understood the moment any nuclear weapons deployed, granted, for example, that United Kingdom doesn't have own nuclear weapons, France has, but in this case, what's going to happen, I can tell you what's going to happen. They need to read Russian military doctrine. They need to read Russian nuclear policy, how Russians define this whole thing, especially Articles 26 and 27. In this case, if they deploy nuclear weapons, which I assume will be French, United States is not going to go there, then, well, Ukraine will cease to exist as such, and so will France. Simple as that. It's not very difficult to turn France into the, parking lot. But then again, Russians are very, very humanistic people. They probably will wipe out the center of Paris together with the Elysee Palace and all military political top of France, and that will be it. So, but this is what kind of people they have. Same goes for London. As I already stated, London doesn't own any nuclear weapons. Those nuclear weapons, especially those Trident 2D5s, which they carry 2 or 3 of them, well, 2 or 4 in the silos and those one single nuclear strategic missile Royal Navy can put to the sea. They are all controlled by the United States, and they are made in the United States. They are serviced in I believe some of them, whatever it is. So anyhow, this is just ridiculous scenario, and yeah, they continue to produce this copious amount of BS, the heap of the BS, and they call this plans, they call it whatever they do call it, but that's who they are. They just come up constantly coming up with some kind of the brown noise to BS. I mean, gullible and not very bright European public. It's not bright anymore. It has been reduced to the basically herd of not all. Make no mistake. Again, there will be people. Oh, we are not like that. I know there are many good, decent people in Europe, but. Majority don't care. Majority wants the bread and circuses, and that's the only thing they want. And so, what do we have? Well, guess what? If you're not sitting on your chairs, how about I will? Oh, good lord, this is unbelievable thing. I never knew that Norway was that big time, thing, geopolitical thingy, But look at this. Even New York Post reports about that, and then, so as you can see yourself, look at this. This is the summary. So helping Ukraine topple Russia instead of caving its demands would save Europe hundreds of billions. Study. And so they present the study which has been done by the Karisk Institute. You see, this is New York Post, which talks about that, yeah, Russia theoretically could be defeated. Okay, that's fine. You would expect this from from Norway, who has about the size military, I don't know, I mean, 1 battalion, and they sink their frigates really nicely. So this is the report. This is Karisk report, as you can see yourself, and it's called Europe Choice, Military and Economic Scenarios for the War in Ukraine. It was done in, 2025. It's just freshest. As you see yourself, there's another butcher in the photo together with the drug addict. He is constantly high now, Mr. Zelensky, and Mr. Sirsky. Unlike Zaluzhny, who is a complete moron, Sirsky actually did graduate from the famed Combined Arms Academy of Soviet Union, actually in Soviet Union, in Moscow. So, but again, he was also the guy who was responsible for bringing up, which is really bringing down the whatever armed forces of Ukraine were to the standards of NATO since 2014. As the result, he is another butcher. He doesn't know how to fight real war because he precisely was basically, adhering to the NATO concepts of the combined arms. And as the result, well, we'll talk about how they manage troops together, obviously, with the American and British generals. And so here's the team of these guys who banned this idiotic thing. And as you can see yourself, all kinds of people from the, international relations institutes, whatever they are, and one guy from the Norwegian War Academy. I don't know who this guy is, but yeah, he probably won't be allowed to command the squad in Russian motor rifle company or but platoon. But that's who those people are. And so, what is this report is talking about? Oh, here it is. They have their scenarios about, and their costs. And look at this. The first scenario, Russia continues gradual advance and eventually pushes towards Dnipro River, forces a peace settlement on terms beneficial to Russia. No, it's not going to be beneficial to Russia. It is unconditional surrender, and that's the reason why there is such a hysteria in the West, and especially among European chihuahuas. And because, yeah, Russians will basically get everything they want, period. And so, but the second scenario is amazing. Ukraine gains superior power and starts to retake occupied land, as in 2022 peace agreement safeguards the Ukrainian interests. And as you can see yourself, these people who use GDP, which is the fake index, you cannot explain to Wall Street and all those financial institutions, people, educated people, that GDP is garbage. I mean, it absolutely does not reflect the actual economic scale of the country, and especially technological and especially military. But they continue to operate with those fictitious numbers. They continue to live in this alternative universe, and as the result, they produce things with the scenarios which are impossible because of the physical impossibility. As you get see yourself, Russians continue to basically demolish their grouping in the Mirny. And if we go now, for example, to situation on the front, and that's the thing which, for example, many people in Pentagon and most people in European military circles do not understand. They cannot grasp it. They don't have toolkit. And I will explain to you why. Here is today's tally. As you can see yourself, it's, well, pretty much same. It really doesn't change, except for yesterday. There was a kind of lowering of the casualties. I don't know for what reason, but now today it came back to, well, around 1,400, between 1,400 and 1,500 a day. That's what is happening on the front. And essentially what is happening there, that there are reports, apart from the fact that many want to surrender, and of course there is a tremendous number of the desertions in armed forces of Ukraine, there is another issue. Many Russian formations, especially stormtroopers, they report now that for the most part, sometimes they don't even fight. They literally sit there. They literally sit in those, dugouts. They sit in those basements of the buildings. Not that it's going to help. As you can see yourself, the FOBs fly wonderfully, and once that thing just blows, that's it. You're done. But still, the morale is broken. And if you take a look, we're going to our good friends, Marat Khairulin and Colonel Popov. This is from 2 days ago. It's Borovsky Ledge. As you can see yourself, this is two orange sectors. These are Russians attacking from the Borovsky ledge, so to speak. And we can see now that something really amazing is happening now, because if you take a look at the map, you will see yourself that the rails obviously going there, and the Oskol River, and basically we have the large operational surrounding being basically in the progress, and that's not so, that doesn't sound really good for armed forces of Ukraine, and especially since we now know if you go further, there will be thrust towards Izium, and yeah, looks like a collapse of the front to me. But again, what is collapse? Many people say, what is the collapse of the front? First, it's there is a thing which is called achagove. Achag literally means cauldron, and it also means the fireplace. But it also means something, the fireplace, which is insulated from anything. So the defense becomes not the network of the strong points. It becomes absolutely sporadic, and it completely is isolated from those strong points, whatever they might be, starting from the platoon level to company and up to the battalion and what have you. And suddenly you lose control over them, you lose ability to manage the battlefield, and this is what when the collapse starts. You begin to surround them, demolish them, and move on, and until you get into the operational space. And we'll talk about this too. This is purely military thing, and this is what is happening right now. There have been one of many now, one of the colonels of the armed forces of Ukraine, Colonel Kovalyov. He has been killed by two people, personnel from the two companies of the armed forces of Ukraine, because he demanded them to go to the front line and conduct their combat tasks, and fulfill their combat tasks. Well, he was killed. Simple as that. And those two companies just simply left their positions and went into the rear. This is what is happening more and more. And if we go now to situation with many other things which are happening there, for it's let's take a look, for example, at this. What you see yourself, it's TOS one sunburn of the grouping of the Army Group Center, working on all kinds of those Ukrainian convoys and all kinds of other things, which there are very few remaining, like MLRSs and things of this nature. And as you can see yourself, yeah, it's a nasty picture there. It's essentially now a full-blown slaughter. And when people say, oh, how could this have been, happening? Well, if you take a look essentially at this book, which has been written a long time ago, 8 years ago, and so here is the none other than Mr. Lavrov. And Mr. Lavrov talks in his large interview to the Military Acceptance, famous TV show in Russia, about what is happening. And he talks about it, that West losing arms race to Russia, and the West wants still more sanctions on Moscow because it cannot compete with the Russian weapon industry. The foreign minister has said. Yes, this isn't the foundation of that all. And read my lips. I've been on it since the very inception of my blog from 2014, when I explained and I told that the West lost the war. They just don't know this yet. Now they do. And when you look attentively at the not only production, industrial output in military-industrial complex of Russia, which dwarfs anything that combined NATO together with the United States can produce, we are talking about total annihilation of the any kind of the advantages, with the exception of ISR, which West ever had over Russia. In terms of the critical kinetic means, the combined West is not even in the same league with Russia, because it's lost the arms race, lost it by the knockout. And so we can continue to discuss this whatever we want, but the truth is that no matter what they do now, there are some things, some gaps which cannot be closed. And I will tell you immediately, Vladimir Putin flies to Delhi, to India very soon. And it is already clear, It's and Indians made it patently clear, obvious. They stated in the official press and statements and that India will be asking Russia to provide for Su-57E export variants and get this S-500 systems. S-500 system is a monster. There is nothing like this in the world. It is the thing completely capable of intercepting multiple independent re-entry vehicles of the intercontinental ballistic missiles, and is capable to operate against every single range of the targets which are out there, including, if ever West gets to it, hypersonic ones. And India wants it. But evidently there was a very interesting discussion before that, on that issue, probably about a couple of years ago. I believe I spoke about it in one of my videos. But while Mr. Lavrov speaks about this, and he is absolutely correct, and I have been on this, again, let me pat myself on my back since the inception. There is another thing which many people do not understand. Oh, it's fine. We know Russian military industry produces state-of-the-art weapons and deadly effective, which everybody in the world now sees, and they want them because, unlike American weapons, they actually work. And so, what do we have? Well, there is another thing, and this is more complex, and this is not for the. And again, when I say hoi polloi, listen, I am also hoi polloi. We're down to earth people trying to make our living, but I mean, for the most part, the military science is an extremely complex science. It is not just narratives, not those stories like tactical level stories with all those military experts on the YouTube today saying, oh yeah, they use, for example, Russians use now geraniums, which have the R-60 missile, which is infrared, missile, and they can attack, and they did attack not only helicopters, but can actually hit their aircraft if they, of course, get into the range, because the effective range of the R-60 is somewhere around 5 kilometers, but still. So there you go. And but there's another thing. It's called military culture, military ethos, military school, and school of the operational art and operations. I You can read my lips. You can put it into the granite if you wish, and you can quote me. In terms of operations, there is nobody who even in the same vicinity of Russians and Russian army. And here, what I have to note for you, and as you understand, for example, Defense Intelligence Agency or MI6 or whoever, they follow Russian, media. They follow obviously Russian military thinkers. And here we have the situation. The latest version, not version, issue, pardon me, of the военная мысль. This is Military Thought magazine, number 10, October 2025, contains this thing which I was waiting for a long time. It contains a number of the critical articles on the operations. They usually, военная мысль talks primarily about high-level tactics and operational art and strategy. And here we have this wonderful piece by Sergantov and Mazhuga, which is called Development of the Theory of Combined Arms Operations in Modern Conditions. And what they do in this article, sadly, it's I have only JPEGs of this. I don't have OCR, whatever the software, so I have to literally translate to some of the key points of this very large article, which also gives us the basically historical introspective or retrospective about the development of Russian theory of the combined arms operations, which we saw today. It basically evolved into results. You can see the results. I mean, it's a total catastrophic defeat of NATO, not Ukraine. Ukraine is not a factor anymore, just cannon fodder, which is being slaughtered every day in the industrial quantities. And so, as you can see yourself, if you take a look at introduction and again, so they come up with the conclusion, which obviously, and I will kind of give you the gist of it, so that in the conditions of the extremely fast, development of the and very substantial supply of the troops with all kinds of the smart and high precision weapons, all kinds of the UAVs and all kinds of the platforms like that, the electronic warfare, all kinds of the dense combat orders, so to speak, are really is basically a suicide. And so they talk about their history of how the theory of the combined arms of operations was developed by Russians, and they talk about how it went from the World War One, they in the interwar period, including their works by Iserson, for example, who was in the foundation of the old beat. I would say the foundation was during the famous Brusilov's breakthrough in the World War One, where those things about the deep operations have been developed. And of course, as you can see yourself, what is highlighted in yellow, it ended up with the development of those ideas and practical means, and as the collective work under the guidance of the general staff and Russian general staff. And here is what is so critical in this particular case. Here it is. They talk about the phases, stages of their theories. Here they mention this Miss Iserson, and of course they talk about Svechin too, and they talk about how this was essentially developing into all kinds of the types of the combined theory of the combined arms operations, and so on the third stage is today. The Russians love those taxonomies, and that's the only way you have to do it. You have to provide the proper generalizations based on the real statistics, real data, which, of course, for example, neither Pentagon nor West has. They live into the fairy tales territory, and so, all this general pattern, rarai, and all kinds of crap like this. But the third stage in the modern Russian practice, so to speak, the accent have been, or focus have been shifted for the constant fire impact and informational impact, not only to the all the groupings or army groups of the enemy, but in the all objects in the strategic depths of its territory, including centers of the decision making and things like that. And Russians speak about it. It is now the Russian army is the only army in the world which operates fully into the net-centric paradigm. Russians have all instruments for that, from the advanced data links, advanced communications networks, and all necessary electronics. But then again, you have to explain to people who have technological basically education on the level of the iPhone that what their communication networks are and how they are defended. And so they talk about here, this is what I spoke in the beginning about, that essentially it's not anymore the network of the critical strong points. No. And here they talk about that. Suddenly, this is the thing which has to be understood, and this is critical. Look how they talk about the stability, combat stability of the any kind of formation, ship, what have you, submarine. Is ability to conduct or fulfill their combat tasks under this impact of of the enemy fire. That means to take some damage and still continue to carry out those tasks, those operations or tactical actions, what have you. And so they talk about that in the present time, and they talk about Russian defense now. The stability of the defense is achieved by the realization of the concept of the preemptive remote complex impact of the critical all kinds of the basically nodes which constitute the potential the offensive potential of the enemy, using with the including high technology, including smart and high precision weapons, standoff weapons, to such a degree that the effect will be the reduction of the offensive potential of the enemy to the critically low level. When did we see that? I can tell you where did we see that. We saw that actually during counteroffensive 2023, which was conceived by all those guys from Pentagon and the NATO headquarters. It's called so-called Wiesbaden Group. Who did it? Well, guess what? They turned on those software programs in their computers, plugged in some fake numbers, no less, not understanding, none of them understand, including the Aguta or Donahue. They have no clue about it. So they don't understand the issue of the high-tech battlefield, which involves, of course, a constant surveillance and constant tactical and situational awareness, and of course, air defense. You cannot explain to people what car is if they never saw one. And so when you look at this, then suddenly you recognize this famous counteroffensive. You remember how it all ended up. It ended up in killing 200,000 of their cannon fodder, and they never crossed even the security zone. They never reached the first line of defense, which is people were wrongly calling Surovikin line. In reality, it was Stavitsky line, and that was it. That was the stability of the defense. You do not allow them to even develop offensive capability in this particular specific instance, as it was in the counteroffensive 2023. This is when I, at that time, and not only me, very many people said, it's over. It's just a matter of time, how many, and just the matter of how many people they want to kill. Of course, then we saw obviously this complete, Nazi invasion of the Kursk, that done under the British guys. And again, they don't have any people in the operation strategic level in NATO who can grasp it and who can plan operations and conduct operations in accordance to the modern requirements for the warfare. They simply have no clue. And that is the result of the corruption and total degeneracy of the NATO's Western, American, French, what have you, British system of the military education, total failure to produce top-notch officer corps, and of course, not a single strategic thinker of repute. None. Zilch. Zero. All kind. The best thing United States produced, for example, I'm not talking about Europeans, it's just pathetic. It was, of course, Admiral Sebrowski and his group, obviously, but it was more operational concept, obviously, of the net-centric warfare, leveraging of the informational superiority. That was a good operational thinking. That was great. And still, many people didn't understand ramifications and implications of that. And as a result, today, we are looking at two generations of the operations and operation planning, which West is behind Russia. They simply do not understand how to deal with this. And that is a long, long story, why it is, what are the actually main factors influencing this. But what can I say? Let them continue to do this peace talks with Ukraine, Trump trying to pretend that he is, somehow the arbitrage, no, United States is a co-belligerent, and Trump, it's his war. He had the chance, he blew it, as pretty much happens most of the time with everything Trump does. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and two. That will be very critical to keeping me in this business. So I want to thank my wonderful patrons. And guys, what can I say? Have a nice rest of this week. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.